My name is Rianne. I help with our partnership marketing here at Trace, and we'll be helping host this webinar, so don't mind me, I'll just be in the back. They can introduce themselves kind of later in the session, but you guys are going to meet Tim here at the bottom of my screen, and then also Gentry over here. They're going to be walking through the Trace platform, kind of going over soccer game film and what it means for today's generation of soccer players.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us here early this afternoon. Early this afternoon. My name is Tim Bennett. I'm the Director of Player and Coach Education at Trace. But prior to Trace, I spent over 20 years coaching college soccer all over the country. Coached in the SEC, the Pac-12, the Big 12. I played at Providence and Rhode Island in the Big East and a lot of other conferences. But on the youth side, which is really what I loved, I was the Development Academy Director and an ECNL staff coach. So I've really been on a lot of different sides of this thing. But one common thread through all of my coaching stints and jobs has been my passion for video, is that I find that video is such an important developmental tool that I incorporated it way back when it was just kind of beginning, and as it evolves, it's become just as essential as an everyday training session. And so what we're going to do tonight, and we've got Gentry on our call. Do you want to introduce yourself before I kind of get into things here, Gentry?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Gentry. Like Tim, I played soccer all my life. I played with Lone Star Soccer Club here in Austin, an ECNL group, so pretty competitive program. And then went on to play collegiately at the University of Texas at Dallas. And right after that, went to go get my master's degree at the University of Texas, and was actually a graduate assistant for the women's program. And one of my main responsibilities was to break down film for the players and for the coaches. Pretty tech savvy, but it was still taking me about 4 to 5 hours per match, just in order to break it down and make it digestible content for everybody. But and then right after that, went back to Lone Stars as a coach, was coaching U11s through U14s, but have just been around the game my whole life.
But then we're going to rope Gentry in here in just a little bit to kind of give us a little bit more information and a little bit more details about the platform. But this is the agenda that we're going to kind of use to introduce Trace. Is that I think the most important step is we've got to really figure out why video matches Gen Z. And I'll go through some general characteristics. I'll kind of outline a very broad definition of Trace, and then we'll spend with Gentry the bulk of the time in the platform. And then we'll jump out to some best practices from coaches, from players. We'll jump into a feature called Trace ID as well. So I do think it's important to understand who we are coaching and who we are teaching and who we are mentoring. Generation Z is much different. They are different, I guess, is better grammatically. And they are going to be our most intelligent generation, and they actually are going to be the best soccer players we've ever produced. But in order to get there, we have to understand how they're going to learn, how they're going to process information. And so this list is just a really simple list of some broad characteristics from academic research. Is we know that Gen Z, they are digital natives. They are the first generation where they know nothing but screens and the internet. And this is not a bad thing. In fact, none of these characteristics are bad. We also know, because they're digital natives, that they have a big tendency to absorb information in short bursts. That's not attention span, it's actually absorption. And again, this isn't a negative at all. 85% of all Gen Z are visual learners. In fact, this is up 10 to 12% depending on what research from Gen Y. The one characteristic I think is so important for us coaches to understand is that Generation Z, they want instant feedback. They're used to getting instant feedback from everything in their lives. Think back when they go to school and they turn in a project or an exam, they instantly come back home and want to know if the teacher has already inputted that end result. It's the same thing when they play soccer. They want to know what they did, what they can do better so that they can get better. The other, I think, encouraging sign from Gen Z, especially on athletic performance, is that they're self-learners. They do want to be in charge of how they learn and when they learn. And I think this maybe causes some frustration with coaches, but there's a way that we can use this to accelerate their development. And the last one is, this is kind of a misrepresentation of Gen Z, is that we think all they want to do is make TikToks, communicate emojis. That's actually not correct. Is they are craving, and craving is probably the right word, or seeking out personal conversations, is that they do want a very personal connection. And that's going to play an important role for us as a coach. So as we go, and a parent as well, as we go through this kind of Trace 101, keep these things in mind. So this is my definition of Trace. And I know it's a big, long run-on sentence, but I think this really does encapsulate exactly what Trace is. The first thing that it is it is a true video analytical platform. And it accelerates development. And it accelerates development in a very, very unique way. The way video used to be handled was you'd bring a team into a classroom and you'd sit them down and you have like a 50-minute or a 90-minute video, session where you're covering every single coaching point. That's antiquated. That doesn't do anything anymore. And so what Trace does is Trace has a unique way to get players to re-engage in their analysis, to think critically. And by getting them back engaged in the platform, in their video, whether it's through their individual playlists or whether it's through their player performance data, that accelerates development. The more that a player can think about their performance post-event with a critical eye, the better they're going to get, regardless of age. And the other thing that really excites me about Trace is that Trace is a perfect solution for all three, I call them kind of legs of the stool of a team. That coaches can get great value out of it, players can get great value out of it, and parents can. And usually back in the day, the way video worked for youth was that the parents would pay for it. They'd do all the filming. They'd give a coach a flash drive or they upload it into whatever video platform they were using. The coach would edit it. I actually say they would filter it, and then they'd give it to the players. And that was it. And it was a one-way vertical line. Well, now with Trace, everybody can extract value out of it. And to me, that makes it a very perfect solution, especially for Gen Z and especially for Gen Z within our youth landscape.
Within about 8 to 10 hours after the match, you all will receive, whether you're a parent, a coach, or the players, they will all receive an email saying, hey, your Trace moments are ready. And we'll provide a link for you all in that email. And so you'll just click that link. And for example, this is where you'll go. You'll click touch chains, click it one more time. And so these are the playlists that you all will receive. So on this right-hand side, these are the player moments. So this is where the players are going to live. This is where their mom and dad will live, because truthfully, this is all that they care about. The moments that they were involved in the play, and not really all of the fluff that happens, the other 80, 85 minutes. On the left-hand side are the tactical moments. So this is where we see the coaches spending majority of their time. The full game is there if you all need it. I'll tell you, we are a very data-driven company. From data that we have on the back end, less than 1% of people even click on that link, because we've already broken down the game for everybody. Your progressions. Anytime your team bypasses a line of defense through dribble or pass, that's going to be labeled as a progression. Your defensive breakdowns. Anytime the opponent does that exact same thing to you, that's going to be labeled as a defensive breakdown. Your goals, that's easy to tag. Your touch chains. Anytime your team connects 2 or more passes, that's going to be labeled as a touch chain. But the real gold, something I'm envious of, something I wish I had when I was coaching, is right here. Every single moment in each of the thirds automatically cut out for you all to go in and review. So, you know, for example, I know we've all had those matches where maybe we dominate the match. Let's say we have 100 moments in the attacking third, but for whatever reason, we just can't put the ball in the back of the net. Well, what you all will do is just click attacking third, and then now you all will be able to review all of those moments. And because you're good coaches, probably take it one step further. Probably build out your practice sessions that following week. Maybe we're going to work on passing patterns. Maybe we're going to work on finishing, whatever it may be. But again, all this was done for you all. You didn't have to do a thing. And I want to make sure and show you all this as well, because I know as a coach I would have used this quite a bit, especially if you're coaching players who are maybe transitioning from 99 to 11v11, or even those 11v11s who you just want to help show them tactically where they stand. At the top right of your screen is going to be a living, breathing tactical radar. So we just go right here, top right of your screen. You'll be able to see exactly where everybody is on the pitch as that moment is playing out. So, you know, for example, maybe we scored a goal because everybody was connected well as a unit, or conversely, maybe we gave up a goal because everybody's bunched up over here. Well, now you'll be able to screenshot this, send it out to the team, and provide that extra visual aid when now more than ever, I think we can agree these players are visual learners. And I know Tim will touch on this, but I'll go ahead and share a little bit about it as well before he does. To me, what I feel like is the most impactful piece of Trace is the feedback that we were getting from players and from coaches, is that we are now hearing that coaches are asking their players to go find 2 to 3 moments from their personal playlist, 2 to 3 moments where they did something well, 2 to 3 moments where maybe there's some area of improvement, and put that a little bit of accountability on them, knowing that following Monday in practice, we're going to go over them at that first water break or during warmups. And now, through the course of maybe a 2-week period, the coaches have actually had one-on-one sessions with each of these players and really now been an extra tutor for them, when traditionally that's just been impossible to do. So as a former player, to me, that is the most powerful piece of Trace. And you all will also have access to a Trace ID. So think of your Trace ID, which is going to be right down here at the bottom right of your screen, as your kind of like your Spotify playlist or your Apple Music playlist of your favorite songs that you work out to, run to. If this was a certain trend that you saw, you could easily save this moment, and Tim will dive into this as well. Add moment. Maybe you want to highlight a player. You know, maybe you need your outside back to get up the line a little bit quicker, right? So you're just highlighting the space. Go in there, add some tags, you know, a little bit better switching the play, a good touch chain, off ball movement, whatever it may be. Add to your Trace ID in one click, and now you can very easily add 10 to 15 moments from that previous match, share it with the team, and now they're going to have a good idea of what to expect that following week in practice. Versus, I remember when I was playing, I had no idea what we were doing in practice until I was putting on my shin guards and I saw where the cones were laid out. And so if we pivot a little bit to the players, so I think that's why we're all here. They're going to also have access to a Trace ID, and so exact same concept. They'll go in there, save their moment, and whether they are 77s or 99s, or as they get older, obviously 11v11s, they can now build out playlists to not only share it with grandma and grandpa, family and friends who couldn't make the game, but obviously even college coaches, if they do have those aspirations. And so if I'm a player, what I'm going to do, let's click on Wyatt. Exact same principle, 1 to 2 clicks, adds to his Trace ID. Or if I'm Wyatt's parents, and maybe this ends up being a goal, to me, this is one of the most powerful pieces from a parent's perspective, is what they care the most about, just from feedback that we've received, is being able to show off their son or daughter to those grandma and grandpa, family and friends who couldn't make the game. So in one click, they can just click share. Now it's on Facebook. Now it's on Twitter. You all can obviously download these moments at any time, copy the link, and text it over. But that's kind of without getting too much into the weeds, the gist of the platform.
So with Trace ID, I think the best, and Gentry's spot on with, it is very similar to kind of like Spotify, but from a development standpoint, there's a lot going on in the creation of a Trace ID playlist that goes back to our definition of kind of accelerating development. And it has multiple purposes. Coaches can obviously use it, as Gentry pointed out, as kind of a queue of moments. Players can use it for homework assignments. Older players, once they hit the recruitable age, it now becomes their highlight reel, their sizzle reel. But there's a lot into it. And I kind of want to go back to it just a little bit here. So when it comes to identifying a moment to add to our Trace ID playlist, whether we're fulfilling a homework assignment or whether we're creating, a college recruiting reel, anytime a player goes back and reviews their performance visually and thinks critically, that's where development happens. That's where development accelerates. But when they're actually clicking, and I know this sounds very weird, is when they're actually becoming active viewers by clicking around, not passive viewers. So homework assignments aren't like just watching a TikTok page. You're For You in TikTok. They're actually involved in it. So as Gentry pointed out, once you've identified that moment and you've hit your star and you've moved the spotlight to where you want it, this process of adding tags is this critical piece. I call it retrieval and rehearse, is that players are going back and retrieving certain teachable characteristics, teachable moments, rehearsing them through video and adding them to their playlist. So another way to view it is that players are taking things from their short-term athletic performance mindset, putting it into their long-term mindset, which has physical ramifications on the field, essentially making the game easier and faster. All by fulfilling a homework assignment, all by going back and tagging a specific moment with certain tags. And these tags, they actually represent, I call them micro decisions. Micro decisions in a macro moment. These are all the things that players are processing and then describing in their playlist. And so once we've added one, and I'll kind of show you, there's some other ways within the platform. For instance, there are certain tools within our platform that you're able to go back and create new moments, essentially adjust the time frame. You can edit tags, you can add players to certain moments. A lot of different ways to use the video, not edit the video, but use it. And so when we've added a couple of moments to Trace ID, here's that playlist. So this is the first moment that we added. And again, we can add as many moments as we want. And you can see these tags, these micro decisions, these subtitles. And this begins that kind of that learning process. And so having players fulfill a themed homework assignment, pull out 3 of the best moments, pull out 3 of the teams, times we change the point of attack through the back, or whatever the case may be. Now they go back, review, create a playlist, and now they can share it with coaches to get that instant feedback, to get that feedback that our Generation Z soccer players want. There's a couple of other really cool features within Trace ID that are fun. And the first one is, and this is really kind of from a recruiting standpoint, from a college recruiting standpoint, is that anyone who gets sent a Trace ID is that they can go back from this particular moment And they can go back into the full game video where they can watch this moment build out to the end of the half, or watch the 2 or 3 minutes that leads up to it. So it's a little bit more in depth. The other fun thing about Trace ID is the player performance data that Gentry mentioned here just a little bit ago. In a player's Trace ID, it gets graphed out over those 5 most recent games. So Trace ID becomes this kind of living and breathing feature. For coaches, this gives you an idea of what type of athletic performance those individual games required of that particular player. You can start to see some patterns emerge. And it also gives the players something. It's, you know, whether it's development, accelerate, they want to beat certain distance, whatever the case may be, seeing a visual like this is really pro Gen Z, I guess. The one that I really like from a teaching aspect is I love this heat map. Similar to the positional radar map, this heat map displays a player's work, where they worked on the field. So you get a little bit more game context, you get a little bit positional mobility, you get a little bit more positional discipline. But more importantly is that players often get lost in games, in particular at the younger age groups. Maybe they're making the jump from 99 to 11v11. Maybe they're working out, you know, different roles and responsibilities within certain formations. So having a visual where you are displaying their work resonates with them. They understand a map, and then they can make that mental jump to incorporate this in their on-field performance. And so this is all part of Trace ID. And then you obviously get your about section. From the college recruiting standpoint, this would be your profile, this would be your bio, and back to your moment list. So the Trace ID is an important part, but it's so adaptable to so many different parts of our team for coaches, players, and parents, that we can really get what we want out of video. And that's the other thing that really attracted me to Trace was I would spend hours, I've lost months of my life, as Gentry pointed out, like editing video, backs of cars, in buses, in planes. And by the time I would spend hours and hours editing, man, I didn't really want to use it to coach anymore because we had kind of moved on from there. It just took so long. So finally having a platform that gives you this incredible ability to get players re-engaged without having to provide that additional labor, this is in Gen Z's best interest. So let's kind of move on here a little bit. Gentry is, these are some just quick best practices. Going back to that list of Gen Z characteristics, these individual conversations, this kind of self-learning, one of the most impactful ways to use our individual playlists is in this thing I call mobile classroom. Whether it's a coach pulling a player aside, going over 2 or 3 moments as they get warmed up for training, or whether it's a parent sitting down with their player and having their player teach them about what they were thinking in each of those moments. Again, the more that players engage in the platform, the better that they get, regardless of the circumstances. You can do virtual classrooms. We talked about homework assignments, going through Trace or Trace ID, any type of meetings, individual development plans, preseason meetings, postseason meetings, mid-season meetings now can all be based on video. Not like on some random grade sheet where you're having numbers for technical ability, tactical, you know, all that stuff. Now it's all video. It's all objective and unemotional. And that's learning. That's how kids really absorb something. So, Gentry, I'll let you take the fun page.
Yep, this is the favorite part of the presentation. And so as you can see, that Normally, this is where we land on a per player basis for the entire year. The 3,800 that you see crossed out there, that is what is the normal list price for other teams and other clubs across the country who reach out to us and want to start utilizing Trace. Because of the partnership that we've recently formed, we're excited about. Every club that is a member affiliate automatically will get a $200 discount, so would be at 3,600, and so ends up being somewhere between 190 and 225, as you can see, just depending on roster size. There's also other couple variables that we can consider in terms of age group of the team. Are we sharing equipment, things like that I'm more than happy to help answer from any coach or DOC or team manager who might have those types of questions. Yeah, looking at that price, I remember on that per player cost, I remember spending about $300 on a random showcase to get that footage from what ended up being just about 5 games. And so looking at the cost per trace, and you get it for 12 months, just incredible value, because at that particular tournament, I remember not having my best weekend, right? And so unfortunately didn't get the best moments captured. But when you compare that to a 12-month sample size that you get at Trace with unlimited storage, automatic editing, Trace ID, which Tim touched on, and then US-based customer support, which is huge. Overall, just incredible value in our opinion. So.
Just want to take this last time to say that we're super excited to partner with the New Mexico Youth Soccer Association. We are happy that you took this time out to be with us today, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening.